So how you going, viewers? Today is a little bit of a story. So this is a Prado 2014. I have a dual battery system and I'm using the Redarc, I think it's an SBI12 smart solenoid, and as everyone knows and debates, these have a temperature sensitive alternator and they don't charge that, they don't have a high voltage on charge. So I put in a booster diode, basically drops the sense volts by about 0.7 of a volt and ups the charge. I run it around 14 volts charge, which charges this battery quite well. But over time, what I've noticed is that the battery doesn't last as long. I believe it's getting charged fully, but it's not lasting as long. And I put that down to a semi-educated opinion. I'm a plant mechanic, but I've also moved into electronics some years ago. So not this sort of electronics, but I have some idea of how this stuff works. With a start battery, a low voltage charge system will work okay because you never really pull the battery down. It's only ever topping off that very top bit of the battery. So on a second battery, you pull that down quite a way every night when you're camping or over a couple of days, and it'll charge back up using the alternator, charging at 14 plus volts. But these smart chargers, I've got a Redarc here, use algorithms and different charging methods to bring that battery back up from being more depleted back up to full voltage. And the way they do that is what allows the battery to have a longer lifespan. And there's always debate. People will argue that solenoids can't charge up fully, etc., etc. I'm pretty sure mine was charging up fully, but at over 14 volts with my modifications. But having said that, these are far more technology and thought goes into charging batteries when you start putting the Redarc on. These are very expensive off the Redarc site. They are about $700 or $800. So there is a company in Perth here in Australia, Western Australia, called Camping 4 Drive, Camping 4WD, and those guys are keeping the industry honest by selling stuff at realistic prices, more tuned with what the product is. So I got this for $400, about half price retail. I still think $400 is quite expensive for something like this, but it is a lot better than $700 or $800. It's made in Australia, designed in Australia, so it should be a pretty good product. So today's video is going to be about installing this, changing my solenoid system to still be there, but be just an override. I have to wire that up a little differently, so it's just going to be a jump starting override, and I'm going to wire this in to charge this battery. So let's get to it. So the changes I have to make on this solenoid, this is a diagram of the whole thing, is normally this blue wire is the one that goes to your switch in your cab, and that's one of the ones that links, and this just goes to ground. So what we're going to do is change and put the blue wire back over onto this terminal, and we're going to switch the solenoid by just switching the ground, and that should just turn it back into a plain solenoid, and it'll remove the voltage sensitive part of the solenoid, which actually lives in the little red thing on the side here. So let's go and have a look at that, and we'll get that done first. Okay, so I'm just testing this rewiring out before I actually do it. I've just got some alligator clips, and I can see that if I now put this back through my momentary button, this just becomes a solenoid, and the voltage sensitive part ceases to work. So that's exactly what I want, so that's how I will wire it up. Okay, so that is that there done. So now if I go and actuate the button in the cab, that should actuate this solenoid. So let's go on. So we'll put the shrink wrap over this. That'll go down to there. Actually, I can bring that back around here now. That will go down to there, then I will put this in here. And the shrink wrap will not only seal it, but it will stop it coming apart. So let's get the gun. Where's that about there? So for now, that is that done. That's modified, so I'll tidy up this wiring at the end, cut that back a bit and cable tie everything up. So now we're going to go over and mount the Redarc and run the cable through for that and set up the earths, etc. So let's get that started. So I'm putting a terminal on there and I'm going to conduit that along where the other one went, and the BCDC I think I'm going to stick there. I might not drill holes in that, I might just stick it down for now, and if it works out it's the right place, then that's where I will stick it. I'm going to test some temperatures maybe later when a car's running with a probe and just see what sort of temperatures, but it's on this side, which that side there is the side the turbo and exhaust on. There's a big opening just in here, so hopefully the air will flow through there nicely and we'll see what happens. So let's get this BCDC out. So there it is, there's the front. It's one of the newer ones, and I'm thinking it's going to sit, let's get around here, I'm thinking it's going to sit here on that top of that fuse box, which should look quite neat. So let's see if we can get it fitted into there nice and neat, and see how that looks. Okay, we'll get the, so it says starter battery is red and brown is out to the auxiliary battery, so we need to hook up brown to the one I've got going across the engine. So let's get that done. So that's soldered to the other side. I've just got to conduit that and put it all back in. I've got an earth in here, which is the standard battery earth. That will sit there once I get this all bent around. So now what we've got to do, I also took off the positive terminal there. Now what we've got to do is put this onto the positive terminal, and the yellow is the solar panel one, which for now I'm not going to use. So let's see if we have to extend this or whether we can just go straight onto there. Okay, so I've just got it sitting there and it's all hooked up. I just haven't conduited anything, and we're going to test it. I'm not sure, so at the moment I've got a flashing A, which is the right profile, but I'm not sure if that's what it should do or not. So let's start the vehicle up. So let's start the vehicle up and we'll see what happens as far as voltages, etc. go. So that's the alternator voltage, 14.5. Let's see what the lights are doing. Oh yeah, we have some lights come on. I think it takes a little while for it to start up and do its thing. So we're at stage, we've got vehicle and we've got profile A. So let's check the voltage on the other battery, which I can do with my app. So there we go, we've got 14.51 on the other battery, 14.52. So that means that we have charge, and if we check the inside voltage, let's see what the difference is. So we have 14.4 there and 14.42, so it's regulating. Let's let that the alternator, it'll come down a bit from there. That is reasonably high. Normally it sits at around 13.9, 14.1. So let's see what happens over time. So I mucked up my little booster diode when I was mucking around with it, so I'll have to get another one, but in the meantime I'll hook up, to use low voltage operation, I'll hook this blue wire up to ignition source, and that should allow that to work properly. But it's charging, I'm just discharging that battery a bit to test it, but it seems to be charging at the full voltage. So we will conduit everything, get everything packed up away, and we'll mount this, and then I will go for a good run and heat it all up and see what happens. So let's get on with that. So what I'm going to do is, this is the daytime driving lights. They come on with a key, and that's what I'm going to hook into this wire with, sense wire, because it's nice and easy, and it's not hooking into computers or anything like over here. There's a module there. So I'm going to hook in down here on the daytime running lights. That'll signal this when the car is started, and that's how the low voltage mode works. And then if you want to put it into high voltage mode, you can just disconnect it. And if I get another booster for in here, which I'll probably get, I'll just put a plug in the wire and and change it back to boosted mode. So let's get on with that. Just a trick when you're in these tricky spots, I just use a fuse and I just wrap some electrical tape around it. I can't get any shrink wrap onto this, so I'll just allows me to go around between the wires without the big bulky spool. So there you go, that's the BCDC plumbed in, and also with the linking solenoid, which is down there. So got the best of both worlds. Can use it to jumpstart, but also have the advantages of the BCDC. It just sits on there. At the moment I have just taped it there, double-sided tape, because if it gets too hot there or anything like that, I am going to change its location. Experiment. I'm going to go and do some runs, maybe check some temperature, and just play around with it. I'm just draining a bit of power out of that battery at the moment to make sure it needs to charge to test that test how much current it can deliver. So I've got the clamp meter here. That's the charge wire in the conduit that comes over from the other side and comes into this battery. We'll just start the car and we'll get the Redarc going and we'll see what current. It's 25 amp and I've got nice thick wire. So the Redarc's going to fire up. So we zero the amp meter, and there you go. It's a solid 25.1 amps straight off the Redarc. That's why you need to use nice long, nice fat wires. This is the Redarc's over there, and using nice 10mm square wire, and there's no problem pushing 25 amps right the way to this side onto this battery. Perfect. So next I will try and work out a way to test the heat at the location of the Redarc, and even maybe test how much current can come out at that heat. So maybe we'll go and do that. I'm going to go down, drive down the freeway and heat up this engine bay, try and get as hot as possible. It's probably not going to be as hot as if you're on a beach maybe, but I should be able to extrapolate that out. And then I'll pull up and let the heat sink into the engine bay and see what happens with this charger, and see what current we can get out of it and see how hot it gets. So that's what we're going to do now. So I did lap up the freeway and come back, and I let it sink the heat in, and it's at about 43 degrees in there. It's only 21 ambient, so that's well and truly under specification. So I'll have to test it actually when I'm on the beach or some slow speed, high power type scenario, but so far so good. So that is all done. Redarc all wired in, tested. Temperature seems to be fine. Tested that. That's going to take some more testing. Once I'm in sand or working the car, I'm going to put a logger or something on there and just test that, but so far so good. Tested the voltage, tested the current, getting right at this battery, 25 amps when it's maxed, and everything's working well. So there you go. If this is of any use, share it around. And I don't normally ask for people to sub and things like that, but it is sort of cool, I guess. I don't do this for any other reason except I like making videos and playing around with this sort of stuff. So share it around, and yeah, might get some more subs, and it's pretty interesting seeing that climb up. So there you go. Feel free to answer ask any questions down the bottom, and I'll try and answer them. And catch you next time.